So the idea that everybody you lose is a blessing and not a loss may sound counterintuitive. Many of us are conditioned to view loss as inherently negative and something to avoid at all cost. You don't want your friends to leave you, and it's even harder to leave your friends because they know you so well, sometimes better than you know yourself. And you don't want your family to leave you, or even you to leave your family, because you love your family dearly. They were with you since before you knew yourself. What if I told you, though, that each departure could lead to unexpected benefits? That's what we're going to be covering today on Motivate, Grind, Succeed, the podcast, exploring how shifting your perspective from loss to blessing can profoundly impact your life, fostering growth and resilience. So let's jump right into it. All right, so let's set the precedence for this episode first. When I say loss, I'm not talking about death. I am talking about when your life gets to a crossroads and you are wanting more out of your life, and your friends, your family, your acquaintances, whoever, simply aren't going down the same path that you are. So, for example, you want a life of high achieving, high performance, but your friends just want to partay. And in order to become better, you need to dump those friends. That's the type of loss that we're going to be talking about. So when we experience loss, whether it is a friend, a partner, or even a coworker, our first reaction is usually grief or typically some sort of distress. And society teaches us to view these losses overall as setbacks. And the emotional impact that we have can be profound, pretty big, let's be honest. And usually it leaves us feeling like there's a void, there's a hole, like somebody that we knew, something that we knew is now gone. And I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It's not an easy thing to go through, especially since us humans at the core were made to be social creatures. We're made to interact with each other. But what if there's another side to the story? What if each loss that we experience is not just an end, but also a beginning, a new genesis? Let's delve a little deeper on this. Imagine loss as a space cleared for something new. Each person who leaves our life, again, leaving our life in terms of we're not going to really interact with them as much or just not at all anymore, they're taking with them the old conflicts, typically the negative energies, the subpar routines. They're taking all of that with them. And it's making an opening in our lives for fresh interactions, fresh opportunities, fresh energies. This isn't about just looking to the bright side, like, oh, just look on the bright side, it'll all get better. Like, no, we're not talking about that, because that typically implies ignoring the negative. And that's not what we're doing here. We're accepting the fact that it will be negative. It will hurt. Period. It is going to hurt. But instead of just saying, oh, we're looking at life on the bright side, we are instead taking this moment and realizing that life is, in fact, a sine wave. I love to say this all the time because it works so good. Life is a sine wave, and you're always in one of four positions on this sine wave of life. You're either moving towards a high point, you're at a high point, you're moving towards a low point, or you are at a low point. This is just the natural cycle of life, relationships, and even your personal growth journey. So let's look at it a little bit of a different way. Instead of looking at it very theoretical, let's bring it down to earth quite literally. Think about a garden and the concept of pruning in a garden. Pruning is, by definition, removing parts of the plants that are typically not advantageous to the plant to help it to stimulate growth and fruit production. Specifically, I can think about this because my dad is really into gardening. I'm not. I'm not as into gardening as my dad is. If I get a garden, it's probably going to be a rock garden. Like that's probably it. I ain't trying to deal with all the plants and whatnot. But my dad is huge on gardening. And so what he does is that we have a peach tree in the backyard. And so literally every year, he'll go out and he'll look at the peach tree, look at the branches, and any branch that is going away that he doesn't want to go, he cuts it off all the time. Now, why is that the case? Because the tree is doing what it's supposed to do, right? It's growing, obviously, but it's growing in the wrong direction. It might be going over somebody else's property, or more usually, that tree is giving nutrients to, again, at its core, it's not doing anything wrong, but the way that it's going is not helping it. In the same way with our lives, you talking to somebody is not in and of itself wrong. You spending time with other human beings is not in and of itself wrong. But if you spend that time with someone who's not benefiting you, you are now growing a branch that is going to become harder and harder to cut, because the longer you stay with that person, that experience, that thing, whatever it is, the stronger that branch will become and the harder it's going to be to cut. Instead of just using a pair of garden shears or garden scissors or whatever you want to use, it could just be a quick snip. You now have to go to it with a hacksaw or a chainsaw or something like that that needs to cut it off. And there can be potentially a lot more damage, and it's a lot harder. So in our lives, sometimes our social circles need that pruning. In plants, it's helped to stimulate growth and fruit production, because if more nutrients are going to that branch that's not helping, that means less is going to the branches that actually need it. Because again, you only have so much energy to give. Once it's stretched too thin, you literally cannot give anymore. Otherwise, you will burn yourself out completely. So again, in the same way, our lives, we need to prune our social circle. This is why I went through the process of making an entire ebook about this, creating and controlling your circle of influence. In fact, I made old episodes about this. So the book is based off of those old episodes. But back to the point at hand here, if a tree has too many branches and too many weeds surrounding it, especially too, which weeds are a whole different analogy in and of itself, but there's too much extra stuff going around with the tree, it cannot grow to its fullest potential. This is why I say that it is difficult. Because if you relate the tree analogy with the garden to our own personal lives, you realize, ooh, wait, hold on. So the people that I'm talking to that I know aren't the best for me, but I'm still hanging around them, that is having an effect. Yeah, because it starts off with a small little twig, something you probably don't even notice. And the next thing you know, you'll notice it when it's massive and going over somebody else's property. Or in this case, you'll notice it when you're spending so much time with this individual or so much time on this circumstance, and it's just not benefiting you. It's just sucking your energy dry, and you just don't know why. You want to put energy towards other things, but you just can't, because you put all this energy towards all this other stuff. And it's just like, oh my gosh, I just can't do this, bro. I really can't do this anymore. And then you get burnt out. Ask me how I know. Now, again, there's no easy way to do this. Once you realize that things need to change, and sometimes people need to get cut off, situations need to be let go of, it's hard. It's very, very difficult. And every time we want to do this, we're met with extreme hesitation from the mind. And this is natural. That's what makes it even more difficult, because it's a natural defense mechanism that we cannot turn off. We can learn to endure it. We can learn to recognize and push through it, but we cannot turn it off. So if you know you need to let that one person go, you know you need to let go of this situation, you know you used to be, as they say in church all the time, let go, let God. You know you need to let that thing go. The best way I found to do that is to realize two things. First, before we get into the part I want you to take away. First, realize that it's going to be difficult to do. Regardless of who it is, regardless of what it is, it will be painful. And second of all, is realizing on the opposite end or on the opposite side of that same coin is that I love myself. It sounds selfish, but hang with me for just like 3 nanoseconds. I love myself, and I want the best for myself so much, because I was put on this earth to do great things. And me not doing that is a shame to everybody on this planet who believed in me, to God, the person who created me, everything. It is an absolute shame for me to not live up to my fullest potential. And so because I want to be able to do that to the best of my ability, I have to unfortunately go through this part of life's sine wave of going through this low point or being at this low point of momentary pain. Because at the end of this, there's going to be an upswing. It will result in better results in the future. I'll have clearer sense of mind. I'll have more space to be able to take on better and more fulfilling activities. I'll have whatever it is, you name it. This is going to be that leap of faith moment. Okay, if you've ever played any Assassin's Creed games, okay, because I'm a pretty decent gamer myself. But if you ever play any Assassin's Creed games, you'll know that in the game, they have this thing called the leap of faith. If you've never played an Assassin's Creed game, I'm going to explain to you what it is. You're typically hundreds of feet in the air on top of usually the tallest building in that part of the map, whether it be some part in Egypt, some part in Greece, some part in wherever, Rome, doesn't matter, right? Because Assassin's Creed is a historically based game. So whatever part of the world you're in at that setting for the game, there's always going to be that highest point that you can get to in the game. Usually one of the tallest buildings, or actually the tallest building in that part of the map. After you synchronize with that spot, which is you getting a look out of all the surroundings, and you have your HUD and you know what's where in that portion of the map, you have to get down. Now, you can go back down the way you came down the building, but that takes too long. So what the game entices you to do is do a leap of faith, where you jump hundreds of feet with a front flip, by the way, with a front flip into typically a hay bale, hundreds of feet down on the ground. Now, yes, you do not take any damage because it's a game and we're going to throw physics out the window real quick. But that's essentially what you're doing in your own life. You're right on the ledge with this moment. When you realize I have to let this thing go, that is you literally at that I'm just about to take this leap of faith moment. But then your subconscious mind kicks in and looks at what you're about to do. Now, you're gonna do this, bro? You know how long you stayed with this individual. You know how much the situation means to you. Aren't you so close to being able to figure this out? Are you sure you want to give this up? This is your thing. Are you sure you want to give that person up? After all the years you've been together, these are all the things your brain is going to be telling you. It is that leap of faith moment, which is why it's so difficult. You're right on the edge. You're right on the ledge. Now, I'm not saying this to go push you off and say, do a barrel roll. That's not the purpose of this episode. Purpose of this episode is more of a thing to just kind of bring you more to awareness of this is something that needs to be considered heavily. So what I want to leave you with is the mnemonic / acronym of loss. It stands for L, let go of the past. It's hard. It's difficult. We have the pains of the past. But again, as we talked about in the last episode, cognitive reframing. What did that person teach me? Should that person teach me I shouldn't look for these character traits to not be involved with a person like this again? Was that a good character trait that they had that I may want to embody? What is it that you can take from the past that is beneficial to you and then let go of the rest? O in loss is to open yourself to new opportunities. This is after you take that leap of faith and jump into that hay bale about 369.23 meters down from the sky. After you get down on the ground, there's a whole different world because now you're street level versus being up high. It's a whole new level of opportunity. You taking the leap of faith and then just sitting in and wallowing in pity is like you sitting in that hay bale. It's not going to help you any. You're still in your tiny little bubble. You need to burst out eventually and open yourself up to the world of opportunities that is around you. And the way to do that is with the first S, to see the positive in every departure. But it is your choice. You need to choose to see the positive. Just like your brain will naturally, without hesitation, without any sort of contemplation, it will see the negative. That's what the brain is wired to do, which is why it takes no effort, which is why seeing the positive takes effort. That's not what the brain's wired to do. You have to choose to reframe what you're seeing into the positive. And then finally, the last S is realizing that once you get through the first three letters, you let go of the past, you open yourself up to new opportunities, and you see the positives, you will then realize that you are building up over time this thing that I like to call, or that the dictionary likes to call, resilience. You're over time strengthening that. You're strengthening your resilience. You're being able to change yourself to what it is that you wanted to become. Crazy, right? But again, this is a process. Talked about, I was in the last episode or 2 episodes ago where I was talking about the process of me overhauling myself, whether it was physically and mentally and just every kind of LY ending that there is out there. And how it's a constantly growing process. And how I spent over 2 years just doing the visual, physical stuff. And I'm still working on it till today. It takes time. It's a process. But the only way you're going to get better is if you start and stick to it and go through the, again, as I talked about before, the sine wave of life. Even though life in and of itself is a sine wave, when you're going through the resilience, there's going to be ups and downs within that are a part of the bigger waves of life. It's how life is. I wish it was easier, but at the same time, if it was easier, we wouldn't really learn anything. We'd be living on autopilot, and it's really not that fun living on autopilot all the time. So I want to leave you with this as we close out this episode here. Loss overall can be a gateway to new blessings and a stepping stone towards your new life, but only if you let it and you choose for it to be so. Again, talking about loss as you essentially pruning off the branches, so the people and circumstances that don't benefit you anymore. Sometimes what often feels like this thing that's just like literally pulling all your teeth out of your mouth is often a redirection towards something that is way, way better, way more fruitful, no pun intended to the tree analogies, and way more meaningful. So when we reframe our losses as departures from things that do not benefit us, that need to happen, we then open ourselves up to new blessings, to new growth, to, again, no pun intended, to the fruits that should be being born. I was gonna say born. To the new fruits that should be born when we actually follow what it is that we were put on this earth to do. So I want to leave you with this. If you're watching on YouTube, comment below. Let me know if this is something that you're struggling with and if you got any questions, because this is difficult. And I make it a very serious effort to read and reply to comments on pretty much every social media platform that I'm on. So like I said, I'm on Instagram, I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on YouTube, I'm on TikTok, and I'm probably forgetting one, but I'm on a lot. And I try to make it a point to respond to all the comments. So if you leave a comment, I will do my best to get back to you. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, criticisms of the world, feel free to share them below. I can guarantee you I will read it and I'll help you out best I can. But until next time, catch you all in the next one. Peace out. And guys, that's going to wrap up this week's episode of Motivate, Grind, Succeed, the podcast. Guys, again, if you like what you heard, be sure to subscribe to the show for weekly uploads. If you love what you heard, be sure to sign up for that email list. And if you hated what you heard, be sure to share it with somebody who will appreciate it. Also, if you guys want to get access to the show notes or any kind of resource or link or to anything that was referenced in this episode, be sure to check out that episode description below. You'll also find the contact information, any freebies, or any sort of thing from our little corner of the internet. Check out the episode description. It's going to be an absolute gold mine for you guys. Until next time, take care, and I will see you in the next episode.